Opinion Operation Sindoor. In the war of narratives, we are a nation that doesn't just move with power, we move with responsibility, guided by an internal compass that values moral clarity over mere display. But the world has changed. We now live in an age where perception travels faster than truth, where screens shape narratives and visibility matters as much as virtue. It's no longer enough to do the right thing, we must be seen doing it, clearly and convincingly, on a global stage. Operation Sindoor, a swift retaliatory strike after the barbaric terrorist attack in Pahalgam that left 26 civilians dead, wasn't just about missiles or drones. It was about sending a message. And India did, although not everyone heard it the way they should have. Somewhere between the precision of the strikes and the chaos of prime-time noise, the point was lost. This operation did not mark the beginning of a war. It was, very clearly, a pointed signal. India hit only what needed hitting, the core infrastructure of terror outfits such as the Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-Taiba. No civilian zones were bombed, no soldiers marched across the line of control, and there was no scorched earth retribution. It was modern warfare at its cleanest, unmanned, targeted, and deliberate. What made it different from past responses was its clarity. India not only crossed into Pakistani airspace once again, but this time, we went deeper, and more decisively. The message was unmistakable: any future terrorist attacks will not go unanswered, and those responsible will not be shielded by borders. But that wasn't the story that caught the world's attention. What could have been framed as a strategic and diplomatic success instead spiraled into a spectacle. The national discourse collapsed into a frenzy of noise. Newsrooms flashed dramatic visuals, self-styled military analysts took over prime time, and the tone shifted from analysis to theatrics. Yet, amid the clamor, there was little in the way of thoughtful messaging aimed at a global audience. What followed online was worse. A section of Indian influencers, seemingly high on nationalism and low on geopolitical understanding, demanded all-out war with Pakistan. Some wanted blockades on Turkey, others cried for a diplomatic freeze with Bangladesh, and so on. They were mostly content creators, projecting complex military dilemmas through the lens of likes and retweets. War is not content. It is brutal, expensive, and irreversible. Even the United States, with all its unmatched military muscle, had to lean on vast coalitions for its campaigns in the Middle East. Still, the outcomes were mixed at best. Russia, despite its heavy arsenal, hasn't found clarity or control in Ukraine either. India doesn't have the luxury of limitless resources, and its neighborhood is as intricate as it is unpredictable. Yet, if we look closely, we have already been winning since 1947, not through conquest, but through resilience, democracy, and development. Our greatest strength lies not in escalation, but in staying the course, building a robust and booming economy, empowering our people, and shaping a confident India that commands respect, not just deterrence. The ultimate triumph will be when our rise is undeniable, our voice unshakable, and our growth unstoppable. Operation Sindoor destroyed critical Pakistani air bases. It exposed the hollowness of their Chinese-made missile defenses. Every missile they launched was intercepted. Yet, back home, the takeaway was just we won. That might feel good in the moment, but it does nothing to cement long-term credibility. India didn't strike for vengeance. It struck to deter. And that's a crucial distinction. It didn't respond to terror by sponsoring terror in return. It didn't target civilians. It didn't weaponize sectarian fault lines. That restraint, that moral high ground, is India's biggest strength. But while India races ahead in infrastructure and technology, it's still holding back in one critical area: telling its own story to the world. Too often, global media picks up and amplifies hostile narratives, while India's perspective is either reactive or missing entirely. The problem isn't capability, it's direction and drive. Countries like Qatar and China have spent years building their media machines: Al Jazeera, CGTN, and others, not just to inform, but to influence. India, with its rich democratic fabric and civilizational legacy, has all the raw material it needs. What's missing is a bold step towards creating its own global voice, not just to push back against misinformation, but to clearly and confidently share its ideas, intentions, and achievements with the world. India's rise won't be written in a single operation or a sudden outburst of patriotism. It will come through decades of consistent economic policy, diplomatic strength, and narrative control. Precision weapons matter. But so does perception. And without the latter, the former can feel hollow. Operation Sindoor did what it had to on the ground. But the aftermath, the noisy self-congratulation, the lack of clarity abroad, showed that we still struggle with the second half of power: the story you tell the world. In a world overwhelmed by noise and manufactured outrage, true influence belongs to those who cut through the chaos, not with volume, but with vision. As a team, we understand that India's strength doesn't need to shout, it needs to shine. We stand firmly on moral ground, carrying the weight of history and the promise of tomorrow. Now, under a leadership that dares to decide and deliver, it's time we shape a voice the world doesn't just hear but remembers. Swipe left for next video, because power isn't found in the echo, it's in the message that endures after the noise is gone. And together, we are here to speak that message with purpose, with poise, and from day one, to own the narrative that must rightfully be ours. Amarjeet Verma is a policy researcher, political social activist, and aspiring author. He addresses contemporary issues spanning people, policy, and politics with profound insight and clarity. Views expressed in the above piece are personal and solely those of the author. They do not necessarily reflect NEWS18's views. Latest blogs.